Greetings and welcome to the World Numismatic News as we take a look at more Indian head penny varieties you should know. The sheer amount of varieties that are known for the 1906 Indian head penny is absolutely staggering, most of which though are fairly minor repunched date varieties, of which this particular Snow 7 variety is, I would say, probably the most pronounced of the lot. You can spot this repunching by looking towards the 0 of the date, where the repunching becomes apparent below the 0, as well as inside on the top end of the cavity as well. There is also clear evidence of this particular phenomenon below the 6 of the date as well, as indicated here. In 2018, a PCGS graded MS65 red-brown example of this particular variety was sold at auction for $264. The next variety to examine is again to do with the date of the coin, but this time it is a misplaced date variety from 1890 instead. On this coin you can see the flag of the horribly misplaced 1 of the date extruding from just above the pearls on Liberty's neck. The reason for something like this even existing is that before 1909 on these particular coins, the date was punched into the working die by hand. This is a very prominent and hard to miss variety even in lower grades. In 2019 we saw the sale of one of these coins in a PCGS slab with the grade of MS64 red-brown for $700. Then, our next coin is a true gem of the series. Some people even refer to this rather tongue-in-cheek as the chief of the Indian head varieties. That is, the 1873 close 3 double die obverse variety. This doubling on the coin is extremely bold and nearly unmissable. The most obvious would be on the headdress and the letters of the word Liberty, where complete separation is achieved and the letters are completely doubled throughout. The feathers of the headdress are also then naturally doubled, which can be best spotted towards the ends of the feathers. Further doubling can then also be seen on Liberty's profile, where both her lips and nose are doubled towards the southwest in rather dramatic fashion, and then the eye is also completely doubled on this coin, with the eye as well as the eyelid completely doubled towards the southwest as well. An extremely valuable variety of which a PCGS graded MS65 red-brown example was sold in 2019 for the rather princely sum of $48,000. A 1904 Indian head penny that displays a rather nice repunched date variety. For this, there is some minor repunching visible in the base of the 1. The 9 largely escapes notice, although typically the loop is connected to the tail of the 9, but this is not a function of the repunching at all, and is something that is commonly seen in these kinds of coins, so just I guess forget I mentioned it. Repunching is again, however, clearly seen on the top of the 0, and the hallmark of the variety is the strong repunching to the top of the 4, displaying towards the northwest for the most part. This is the feature that you are likely to notice first on this coin. In terms of the reverse of the coin, it is typical to see a small defect towards the upper serif about midway through on the E in the word cent. In 2020, a coin like this was sold online in a PCGS slab with a grade of MS64 red-brown for the amount of $688. From there, we turn our attention back to 1883 for a misplaced date variety, the so-called 1883 18 in pearls variety coin. To identify this coin, examine the pearls around Liberty's neck, specifically the 3rd and 4th pearls, where the base of a number 1 digit is impressed in a diagonal fashion. In addition to this, there is what appears to be the lower rounding of an 8 connecting the end of the ribbon to the base of Liberty's neck as well. An example of this coin was sold at auction in 2013 at a grade of XF40 from PCGS for $640. And then a spectacular coin, easily one of the top 5 varieties of the series overall. Strictly speaking, a repunched date, but the repunching is so unbelievably bold that this is simply also referred to as the 1894 double date variety as well. On this coin, the repunching of the 1 is seen directly towards the east in very clear fashion. The 8 is similarly affected, with additional signs of the first striking inside the lower cavity of the 8 as well. The 9 is repunched in much the same fashion, but this time in a far more slanted manner towards the northeast, with again the tail inside the lower portion of the final 9 as well. The 4 is even more dramatic and is almost entirely doubled towards the east. This variety can be detected in virtually all grades, and it makes it a very popular coin to search for and collect as well. If the condition of your coin permits it, then a slight die scratch can be found connecting the S of states towards the rim, and in some coins, but not all, there are several slender cuts along the rim of the coin just above the aforementioned S as well. Then, in about the same position on the reverse of the coin, which is to say around the 10 o'clock mark, there is a die crack leading from the reef towards the rim of the coin. This feature does become stronger in later die states, and may be very faint or even missing in an early die state example of the coin, which means it's not an absolute indicator by any means, but an interesting confirmatory diagnostic, should the die state of your coin permit. In 2019, a coin like this, graded by PCGS as MS66 Red, was sold at auction for a very cool $30,000 during the August A&A show. A penny from 1903, and not a very complicated variety to be honest, but one that you could very easily miss if you aren't keeping an eye out for it. What we have here is a misplaced date, one of several similar such varieties that are known for this particular issue. But in this particular case, the misplaced date can be spotted in between or perhaps underneath the denticles within the coin, about southeast also of the 0, but not quite in between the 0 and the 3 either. Given the placement of the digit, it seems very likely that it was in fact a misplaced 0, but in truth it could just as well have been a 9, or in this case perhaps even a 3 could very easily be argued. Not a fantastically valuable variety that only commands a very small premium over the base coin itself, and is mainly only of interest to variety specialists or very serious series specialists. 2017, for instance, saw the auction of a PCGS graded coin with a grade of AU58 that closed for $89. And then we have a variety that is a little more familiar to the eye, a double die reverse Indian head cent from 1889. The doubling is quite bold in this case and can be best spotted towards the right side of the shield, both towards the lower inside border and then generally towards the northeast as well. Excellent and extremely strong doubling can also be very clearly found towards the upper right side of the reef, where the leaves are very strongly doubled towards the same northeasterly direction. In 2017, there was an auction of an NGC graded AU55 example of this variety that sold for $193. And now we have a coin that is very peculiar indeed. On the surface of it, what we have is a date variety from 1971. But the whole story is not nearly that simple. Closer examination of this variety has proven that it was indeed struck with the same dies used to make the proof coins for the same date. But this coin clearly has no proof characteristics whatsoever. The rims are rounded and not as sharp as you would see on the proof coin, and the fields and devices are definitively business strike. Identifying the coin is easy, however. The last one of the date is slanted towards the left, and the flag of that number actually touches the 7. In addition to this, die file marks are seen just above the E in United, in between two denticles. Despite the variety first being recorded by Walter Breen in 1977, there have been very few of these coins discovered to date. But in 2014, a very attractive MS64 red-brown coin from PCGS was sold for $10,000. A very interesting example of an overdate variety, although, well, it is a date variety, but not necessarily an overdate variety, come to think of it, that can be found on the 1896 Indian Head cent. The point of interest for this particular coin is on the top right of the number 9, where there is a very distinct spike peeking out towards the right, leading to the coin's affectionate nickname of the Horned 9 variety. Now, what exactly the underlying element may have been is not exactly clear, but it does rather resemble the flag of a number 5, doesn't it? Values are a little bit hard to pin down for this variety since no clear auction record exists, but since the base coin can sell for easily $300 to $400 in MS64 red, and the MS301 variety sells for at least the same amount in a similar grade, then that should not be an unreasonable expectation. From there, we move on to a very major variety for 1875, a very bold, repunched date that you should have very little trouble spotting indeed, much like the previous coin as well. The repunching is best evidenced here on the base of the number 1, where the doubling is really very strong. The 8 is also very strong as well, again towards the bottom half of the number, but in this case the 8 is also double towards the top as well, with the effect being slightly stronger towards the top right, and then again conversely the bottom left. In addition to this, there should also be a die crack running from the rim across the top of the OV section from of America, and back towards the rim again from there, just above the first A. Also, a point that most people might easily miss, and that you could use to establish the coin's authenticity, is a pronounced die scratch just above the letters of R in America. Now, in 2015, a coin graded as MS64 plus red-brown by NGC was sold at auction for $705. And then we have an absolutely fascinating coin to look at, where we see an example of an misaligned die clash on the obverse of the penny. A neatly aligned series of 4 to perhaps 5, depending on the exact die state, triangular shaped dots or impressions, seemingly from the denticles of a different coin, running diagonally just below the first T and A of states. Rick Snow postulates that these might be from an impromptu hardness test of the working die in order to test the die's feasibility for further striking. A very scarce variety coin with an estimated market value of around $1,000 or so for an entry-level mint state grade, or what would amount to around 10 times the value of the base coin itself. A rather popular misplaced date variety from 1883. On this coin, the last 2 digits of the date, that being the last 8 and the 3 of 1883, or what remains of them, are seen towards the south. The very top of the 3 is found in between the denticles beneath the gap between the 8 and 3. And then the top of the 8 is found correspondingly towards the southwest of its intended position. It's important to remember that because this is a die variety and not a minting error, that this particular detail will remain unaltered regardless of the condition of the coin, whether you have a very high grade example or a more commonly found circulation grade coin. Also, if you think that you do have this variety, there is a confirmatory diagnostic that you could look for that is found on the reverse of the coin, where the top right tip of the shield is connected to the denticles right above it by means of what appears to be a small die chip. That does in fact get progressively worse as the die state of the coin advances. Now, in terms of value, an example of this variety was sold at auction in 2013, graded by PCGS as MS64 Red for $851.88. And then the next coin in line is a very attractive repunched date variety to be discovered on the 1891 Indian Head cent. On this coin, the place of interest is again the date, as you would expect, but here we can see the extremely bold repunching where the digits of the date were initially struck slightly to the north of the finally intended position. The remains of that initial striking can clearly be detected towards the top of every single number in the date. There really is no mistaking this variety. In 2020, a PCGS graded coin with the given grade of AU58 was sold at auction for $168. Then we have a phenomenal variety within the series. Actually, a coin that displays multiple die varieties on both obverse and reverse. Firstly, this is a subtle double die obverse variety, the effects of which are mostly seen on the letters of Liberty, specifically though the L, I, B, E, and R letters of that word, with the doubling becoming less severe as you progress further towards the right. But chiefly though, and most dramatically on this coin, the place of interest is on the reverse, where you can see clear and unambiguous evidence of massive off-center die clash marks. Directly below and somewhat overlapping with the shield are now the inverted letters ICA of America that appears on the obverse. Forming an overall crescent shape towards the right of that are the impressions of multiple denticles from the rim of the coin, just towards the right of the shield, going all the way down towards the N in cent. It is a tremendous example of misaligned die clash on an Indian Head cent, and in 2018 a PCGS graded coin with CAC approval for its MS65 Red grade was sold at auction for $5,040. One of the most prevalent varieties within the series would be the misplaced date variety, and this 1878 penny is yet another example of just this. The 7/8 portion of the date, so the last 2 digits in other words, were once again misplaced way towards the south of the intended position. The very tops of the numbers, especially the top of the 8, can be detected within the denticles just below the 7. If you are not sure if you have this particular variety, then the dies it was struck from famously suffered from radiating die cracks that run through the tops of the letters of America. You can use these for confirmation, although it should also be noted that the latter die state examples will display this particular point a bit more clearly. In 2019, a PCGS graded coin at the MS65 Red level was sold at auction for the amount of $1,920. And while on the topic of misplaced date varieties, 1883 has a really good one. Well, to be accurate, the date has quite a few, but the one that we'll be looking at right now is the Snow 1 type, where the date was not hidden away in the denticles as before, but instead the digits were placed far to the north of where they actually should be. Specifically, we should pay attention to the number 1, and then look towards Liberty's neckline, just below her pearls. You can see the outline of the base of the number 1 in a diagonal orientation. Despite being a relatively easy variety to detect, it is also a surprisingly scarce one to actually find. But in 2015, a wonderfully deep chocolatey brown example graded by NGC as MS66 Brown was sold at auction for $1,175. Then we turn our attention to not a misplaced date, but rather a repunched date variety next. And when discussing repunched date coins within the Indian Head Penny series, then without fail, the 1888 over 7 coin will soon be mentioned. Luckily, detecting the variety is relatively straightforward with the aid of some minor magnification. Look first towards the very bottom left of the number 8 in the date. Here you can see the base of the underlying number 7 still protruding out from underneath the overpunched 8. Then look towards the top of the same number, and a minor portion of the flag of the 7 should also still be detectable towards the top left of the 8. A small cud is known just above the letters TED of United on the obverse, but this does get progressively worse as the die state of the coin advances, although coins in a very early die state may not possess this particular feature at all. In 2019, a ravishing, almost semi-proof-like example of this coin was sold at auction, graded by PCGS as MS64 Red Brown. It was sold at the ANA's World's Fair of Money for an astounding $72,000. A rather dramatic variety from 1902 that is also, by quite a long shot, the easiest variety to identify of all of the coins discussed here. Somewhat reminiscent of the 1870 pickaxe variety, only in this case it really is quite a bit more obvious. The coin has a very noticeable die gouge, or if you want to be a little more specific, a die file mark running diagonally underneath Liberty's eye from a northeasterly direction to the southwest. It really is quite an unmistakable variety. During 2015, a coin like this, graded by PCGS as MS64 Red Brown, was sold at auction for $601.60. 1905 plays host to our next variety coin for the Indian Head Penny series, and this time it is our trusty companion for the series, the misplaced, or again, if you want to be a little more technical, repunched date variety in this particular case. Now, this is an exceedingly rare variety that is actually not that hard to spot, if you are lucky enough to actually come across one, that is. Quite simply, the only area of the coin that you need to pay any real attention to at all is the number 5 of the date. Directly south of the number, the bottom part of the 5 almost appears doubled, where the repunching took place. In 2013, Great Collection sold a PCGS graded EF40 example of this particular coin for $396. Then we have something that is quite rare for the series, a repunched mintmark variety, though that shouldn't come as much of a surprise as the entire series, bar for the final 2 dates, were exclusively struck at Philadelphia and as such, well, simply just did not have any mint marks. In this case, the mint mark is only slightly affected, but the repunching is clear on the upper part of the S, and the effect is seen more towards the south of the letter. You should be careful though to identify the repunching on this variety carefully and not confuse it with any of the number of strike doubled or machine doubling coins that also exist within this same area. During 2021, a coin like this one, graded by PCGS as MS64 Brown, was sold at auction for $690. An Indian head cent from 1882 is up for discussion first. In this case, it is not the repunched date variety, but instead it is the broken 2 variety for the same date. The obverse die for this coin was created with a defective number 2 punch for the date, easily identified by examining the top of the number 2 of 1882. Since this is a digit punch defect, it may very well appear on other dies for the issue as well, but only this die has been identified to date. But a subsequent die does show signs of repair to the die punch matrix. Either way, the ball of the 2 will be connected to the body of the 2 by a small bridge in an early die state, or to be completely disconnected in a later die state where the die would have been repolished. During 2019, a PCGS example of this variety was sold online, graded as AU50 for the sum of $360. And then, while discussing the Indian head cent varieties from 1882, arguably the most renowned such coin has to be the Snow 6 example, which is the most extraordinary example of a misplaced digits or misplaced date coin in the series, easily competing for the title with the 1897 one-in-neck coin as well. On this variety though, there are at least 4 distinct impressions of the base of the number 1 in the pearls and bust truncation of the design. The most prominent of these is due north of pearl number 4, with another seen just south to that location between pearls 4 and 5. The tip of a third one can also be seen connecting pearls 1 and 2, and then finally there is a clear 4th impression under the neck truncation, just towards the left of the ribbon. This is an extremely rare variety, sure to fetch thousands at auction, and in 2003, an NGC graded coin at the MS64 red-brown level was sold at auction for $1,840. Then we look at a fantastic example of a double die obverse coin from 1887, easily one of the top 10 varieties from the Indian head cent series, and an equally popular coin at that. In this case, we are looking at an example of pivoted hub doubling, where only the right side of the coin seems to be clearly affected by the hub doubling. The letters of America are all doubled clearly towards their right. This is not to be confused with the additional outlines that can be found on some of the Type 1 coins of earlier years. Furthermore, the tips of the headdress's feathers are also affected by the doubling, although in keeping with the Class 5 doubling, not nearly as dramatically so as the letters of America. And then finally, the T and Y of Liberty are also doubled on this coin. During 2021, a coin graded by PCGS as MS62 Brown was sold at auction for the closing price of $840. Subscribe to WNN and activate notifications with the bell icon to know when new videos are released. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.